What's up, YouTube? We got 14 big balance changes and bug fixes that are going to change up the meta more than you would think. Let's go over it. Alright, let's start out with the nerfs. And yes, all of these balance changes are already live in game. First off, Brock is getting a nerf. One of my favorite brawlers, so fun to play. His health is getting reduced by about 7%. Honestly, this is a fine nerf. Personally, he's been a top 10 brawler for, I think, like 2 years, almost. He's been a really good brawler for a long time. This isn't actually going to be a huge impact for him, as he is a very long-range brawler, right? So he's not always involved in close-range fight, but this is going to make some brawlers kill him in one less hit. For example, Mortis. So it's definitely going to impact him, but as a long-range brawler, it's not the end of the world for him. He'll still be a pretty good brawler. Next, BB is getting a nerf as well, a 5% health reduction. This one is definitely justified after a couple buffs in a row. She became one of the best brawlers with a really fast move speed. The move speed is staying the same, so she's still going to have pretty high survivability because she'll be able to escape pretty well with that fast move speed, and no matter which star power you take, she'll still survive pretty well. But now you'll get punished a little bit easier if you engage a little bit harder than you think you should be, but with only a 5% nerf to her health, it's not a crazy big nerf. She's still going to be a really good brawler, definitely still a top 10 brawler. Jean, one of the best brawlers in the game, is also getting a nerf as well to his gadget, going from 3 to 2, just like Em's gadget. Honestly, another justified nerf. I could have thought they could have done this the same time they did the Em's nerf. I mean, it's almost the same gadget, although admittedly, it's not like they didn't nerf his gadget at the time. They reduced the healing on it by a good amount, so it's now getting another nerf on top of those prior ones. I still think it's a pretty good nerf. Being able to knock back multiple people away from you or take the ball out of their hands, or interrupt whatever they're doing, whether it's a super or something, is a really good ability. So especially for like someone like Jean, who's a gem carrier, and he can even super people in and push them out, so he can take on some close range brawlers a little bit easier, and he's not punished as much for it. So it's definitely a good nerf, and he's still gonna be a really good brawler. The final nerf is going to Jackie with the same nerf that Jean is getting. Her gadget is now only going to be able to use twice per match. Another good nerf in my opinion. Jackie's gadget was definitely one of the best in the game, if not the best. The speed boost on a brawler who is insanely tanky is just so difficult to deal with, because you're just not going to have enough damage to deal with them because they're so tanky, and they will catch up to you no matter what, because Jackie's speed boost is insane. But with 2 gadgets, it's definitely a solid nerf for Jackie, because it's certainly the best part about her, and without those, I don't think she's going to be quite as strong, but she's still going to be a good brawler, and hey, it's still a good gadget. Also, you might be wondering, where is the Sprout nerf? What the heck? One of the best brawlers in the game, and he's not getting a nerf. Why? Well, actually, look at this tweet from one of the Brawl Stars community managers. Someone asked, hey, where's the Sprout nerf? Tom did, and he said, well, there are some other balance changes we want to do, but it requires an update in order to do them. So, I mean, a little bit cryptic. He didn't specifically say that they were going to nerf Sprout if they could, but you can definitely presume that that was their intention, but they're not going to be able to do it until whenever the next client update will drop. Now, what is this nerf going to be? My guess, since it requires a client update, I wonder if they're changing his wall interaction in some way. My hope is that he spawns less walls, or is less likely to spawn as many walls, because sometimes he spawns a crazy amount of walls and it just completely blocks you. So if maybe they could make that be a little bit less, you're more likely to get around the walls a little bit easier. I actually think that'd be a not bad nerf for Sprout, and probably a good direction to go for nerfing. Alright, let's get into the buffs now. First off, we got a buff to the newest brawler, NANI. That's right, and this is very justified. Getting a 10% reload speed buff. This is a really good buff. 10% reload speed buff is huge, and this is definitely going to be, I mean, this was the correct direction to go, I think. Keeping it a high skill cap brawler, but allowing you to be punished less for missing some of your shots, because you're going to get that next shot a little bit faster, and also charge up your supers a little bit faster, and honestly lose less 1v1s, because if you missed 1 or 2 shots, the reload speed is so slow that you would get punished really hard. Now it's going to be not quite as bad. I think this was a really good buff for Nani And she's definitely going to be a good amount better. We'll have to see exactly how good she ends up being. By the way, there was also a bug fixed with her, which I didn't even realize you could do. But apparently if someone passed you the ball while you were in the middle of her super and then you teleported, it would teleport the ball with you. Well, that has been fixed. I didn't know that was a thing. Dang. Next buff goes to Tara, who's getting a health buff. A little bit over 6% health buff. I think this is a really good buff for Tara. She's always felt kind of a too squishy of a brawler for someone who can be really high impact but doesn't do crazy damage. Really the only good thing about Tara was always her super, right? Didn't do high damage and didn't have high health, and the range was, you know, pretty medium range. So I think this is the good direction to go because she does want to be a little bit aggressive, and this is going to allow her to be a little bit more of that aggressive playstyle that really suits her. So I think this is a good buff for her. Now Max is getting almost a 7% buff to her damage. I think this is a pretty interesting buff for Max. I don't mind that Max got buffed. It wasn't an OP brawler. Solid, not bad. But for a brawler who starts off with 4 ammo slots, this is definitely an interesting direction to go. She's going to be a little bit more of a glass cannon now with not crazy high health, but the ability to do a ton of damage if you are hitting your shots. Just not crazy high range, but of course, with the fast move speed and a gadget that gets you closer, Max is going to really be a force to be reckoned with at medium range, and she'll be able to dish out a ton of damage, and honestly making her more usable in modes like Heist and Siege as well. Not that she wasn't usable there, but now the ability to dish out even more damage, defending against robots, or dealing damage to the safe can now be pretty crazy. Next buff is a huge one, and this is going to Karl, who's getting a 10% damage buff. Karl has really needed a buff ever since gadgets came out, because his gadget, let's be honest, it kind of sucks, and everyone else got a lot stronger, and Karl just didn't. And also a lot of gadgets got introduced into the game that can interrupt Karl's super, so he hasn't been nearly as good since gadgets came out. 10% damage buff is really going to put him in the meta. This is a huge buff. Just like NANI got a big buff, Karl is really going to be a lot better of a brawl. I wouldn't be surprised. He's definitely going to be a top 15 brawler. We'll have to see if he's going to end up being a top 10 brawler or not. He has a lot of solid attributes, although his gadget still is pretty underpowered, but we'll have to see exactly where he lands up. Mr. P is also getting a really big buff, getting a little bit over of a 10% buff to his health. Mr. P has always been a pretty solid brawler, so I'm a little surprised to see him get a buff this big. I guess you can justify it with, alright, he is a turret user who doesn't do a lot of damage per shot, and if you don't have his first star power, the range extension, his range is not very high for a brawler whose health is pretty low and doesn't do a lot of damage. So now, in that scenario, he's no longer quite that weak, so I'm kind of okay with it. He's gonna be a really good brawler for sure. Definitely top 10. We'll have to see if he's top 5 or not. But, I mean, this is a big health buff from Mr. P. Now, there's also a big change to Big Game. All big bosses or big brawlers, health is getting reduced by 20,000. That's right. They're getting a huge health nerf. This kind of makes sense since they reduced the time of the mode to 2 minutes, but they didn't change the health of the bosses when they did that. And before, it was definitely possible for some bosses to go way past 2 minutes easily. In fact, some of them could even go to 5 minutes if everyone on the enemy team kind of sucked. But regardless. So now what brawler you're playing as the big boss is going to matter a lot more. I don't know exactly how I feel about this change. This seems like a ton of health, so we'll have to play it to really find out how big of a nerf this is to people who are trying to play brawlers that are good against the boss and then wind up as boss. But this is definitely good considering how OP Nita and Jessie is in Big Game. And Sprout, alright? And actually, now that I think about that, if they do actually nerf the walls for Sprout in the next client update, that would also be a good nerf to him for Big Game. So maybe that is what it is. They also fixed a bug in Big Game where after you had 20 wins in the mode, you could no longer play it. So glad they fixed that. They also fixed a bug in Robo Rumble, which you can probably guess it, the Sprout glitch where the robots wouldn't attack the safe. That is now fixed. And they also fixed a bug in the Championship Challenge, or actually apparently it's in any challenge, where if you already had 4 losses in that challenge and you were in a game room while the challenge was released, now you can actually play it. Apparently you couldn't before. Weird. Alright, here is the full list of balance changes. Screenshot it if you want. Also put a link down below to download the picture so you can share it with whoever you want. I'm really excited to see how these balance changes are going to impact the meta. Well, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out another great Brawl Stars video right over there that I'm sure you would also enjoy. But that is going to be it for today's episode. Let me know your thoughts on the balance changes down below. I'd love to hear them. Thank you so much for watching, though. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you later. Peace.